Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I am guest designing for My Favorite Things today over on their blog. So for my card today, I pulled out the new Mermazing stamp set that I think is absolutely adorable. And I'm inking it up with MFT's Black Licorice Hybrid Ink, and I'm just stamping it onto a piece of Bristol Smooth white cardstock. And I wasn't happy with how the first one stamped on camera. It looks alright, but the stamp impression wasn't as intense as I wanted it to be. So I just moved the cardstock around and stamped it a second time. And then I stamped this rock from the set as well with the same ink. And then I ended up using the first one that I'm going to toss as a little bit of an experiment because I wanted to use my Distress Oxide inks with my water brush and basically watercolor in this image. I've done a little tiny bit of this, but I've never done anything with a skin tone, so I wasn't sure how it was going to work. But I was able to make it work, so I experimented a little bit just to see how the color would go down, and I was okay with it. So then I went on to my main image here, and I am just pressing the corner of the Distress Oxide inks onto my little plastic palette here, and then picking up the color with my water brush and coloring in the image. Now, these are not going to give you the same look as you'd get with the normal Distress inks or with actual watercolors, dye inks, anything like that, because these are more of a hybrid. They're kind of a pigment. They have a more of a chalky look, but they're still fun to play with. So I just went along and colored everything in. And then for her hair, I decided to kind of experiment a little bit more, and I wanted to blend a couple colors together. So I started with the purple, and then I added the blue, and then as it kind of lightened up towards each other, I would just blend the water brush back and forth and blend the colors together. So really fun. So you get, like I said, you get a different look with this than you would with other coloring mediums, and the colors go on fairly nicely. Once they start to dry just a little bit, you're not really going to be able to blend them anymore. But that's another little bonus I found here, because that's how I was able to create a bit of texture on her little mermaid tail, is I was just picking up the color and then drawing little swoops, basically for scales, and then I let that dry, and then I went back in with my blue and that cracked pistachio again and kind of went over it. And since the scales had basically dried, they weren't going to blend out at all, so it just gave it that fun little extra something. So once I was done with that, I colored the rock with iced spruce. Is that what it's called? Yes, iced spruce, which is basically a gray color. And then I set those aside. And then I pulled out the MFT Beach Scene Builder Die-namics. And I die cut a bunch more Bristol Smooth cardstock with the dies from this set. And with this main die here that creates the water and sand kind of scene, after I die cut it, I ran it through a second time using the largest circle from the wonky stitched circle Die-namics, because I wanted to create just a central circular image for my scene here. So I die cut that with the circle. I die cut a second piece with the top portion of the circle. And then I had all my Distress Oxide inks out, and I used that to color all of these pieces of cardstock. So this time I used my mini ink blending tool and sponged all of these with almost every single available color. As of right now, there's 12 colors available. I used every color except for Fired Brick. So I was just going along and sponging all the color onto this. I had purposely chosen the Bristol Smooth because it is a dream for blending colors on, whether it be Distress Oxides or Distress inks, MFT dye inks, etc. Just colors go on so nicely onto this cardstock. So nice to sponge and everything. And then I was using a little sticky note to hold these smaller pieces in that, because it's really easy to transfer fingerprints and make impressions in the ink when you're sponging it onto cardstock like this. So I was just going along and sponging for some of the little tiny details, like these little coconuts and the little shells and whatnot. I left them in the scrap of cardstock that I die cut from, so that that was holding it in place so I could sponge the ink onto it. And then after I'd done that, I was like, oh, this would actually work perfectly too, because I want to splatter all of this with water. So I got everything sponged first, and then I'm going to replace all those smaller pieces back into that larger scrap, so that everything is just nicely laid out and held into place, so that I can sprinkle everything with water to get that fun distress effect that we all love. So got everything into place, laid out the larger pieces there, and then I'm just spraying water into my hand, picking it up with my fingers, and then like flicking it onto all of these pieces of sponged die cuts here. So did that several times because I wanted quite a lot of splatter, and then let it sit for 30 seconds to a minute roughly. And then grabbed a piece of paper towel, press it onto there to sop up all that extra water, and then you get that fun distress splatter effect that I just love. I just love it. So did all of that, and now I can go on to actually building my scene. So to attach the base of the scene here, the sand and the water and the sky, I'm just going to flip these pieces over and then tape them together with just pieces of acid-free Scotch tape. So I start with the water and the sand piece first. And then because these pieces I had die cut the sky part slightly bigger, I wanted to make sure that this circle was an actual circle and not kind of messed up. So I pulled out that same wonky stitched circle Die-namics and lined up the bottom again with this, and then was able to line up the top, and then that way I have the perfect circle shape. Did that upside down, and then that way I can just tape them together with the same tape, and that's created the base for my scene here. Now, if I was just adhering all this directly to a card, I wouldn't feel the need to tape this, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking I'm probably going to pop this up with foam tape, so it's easier to have everything like adhered separately. So once I had my scene or background created, I can start adhering everything else. So the 3 extra die cut leaves for this palm tree here, I bent them a little bit back and forth with my fingers just to get them to pop up a little bit for some extra dimension. And then I applied adhesive just to the very edge of the leaf in the center there, so I could adhere it flat to the palm tree, and then the rest of the leaf kind of pops up and out from the card. So I did that with all 3 little pieces here, and I'm just using little dabs of the Tonic Nouveau adhesive that I'm rather obsessed with lately. So got that adhered, and then I just used more tiny little dabs of adhesive to adhere the little coconuts directly to this palm tree. So really, really simple, trying not to add too much adhesive because you don't want it oozing out everywhere, especially over anything that's been done with either dye inks or distress inks, because any sort of liquid is going to cause it to react. So you definitely want to be careful with the adhesive you're using or how much adhesive you're using. So small, little, tiny amounts. That's all you need. So got everything adhered, and then I started adhering everything to my background here to create the scene. So I adhered my sun and then my clouds, and that's where I was using my grid mat to get everything lined up. So because the clouds have a flat base, so I wanted them kind of lined up a bit too. So got everything lined up, and then I'm going to adhere the trunk of my tree and then adhere the top to this palm tree here. And same thing, I want that kind of sticking out past the edge of the circle just because it gives it that little extra something. And then I can adhere this rock here for my little mermaid. So get that adhered, and same thing, just letting it kind of stick out past the edge of the circle. And then I thought about popping her up with foam tape, but I decided I was going to just pop up the whole main scene here with foam tape. So got that adhered, and then I'm going to adhere the couple little shells that I had sponged and splattered as well, just to finish off my fun little scene. So once I have all of that, I can go on to creating my actual card base, which is MFT's smooth white cardstock that I had cut in half to 4 1/4 by 11 inches. And I'm going to score it at 5 1/2 inches with my Teflon bone folder. So I'll create a top folding A2 sized card. And while I was creating this card, I remembered there was a perfect sentiment from the previously released, this is the Polar Bear Pals stamp set, also designed by Bertie Brown for My Favorite Things. And this is just sitting here thinking of you. And I was like, that's perfect for this mermaid sitting on her little rock. So I pulled that out and I inked it up with the same black licorice hybrid ink, and then stamped that onto my card. And then I'm going to open my card and finish off the inside before I do anything else. So I pulled out all the different little like seaweed and coral images from the Mermazing set, and I'm inking them up with a bunch of these Distress Oxide inks. So I ended up doing like just a Distress Oxide overload with this card. I watercolored with them, I sponged with them, I stamped with them. I just had fun. So I just stamped them all along the bottom of the inside of the card here just to kind of create a fun little underwater scene, letting them overlap. So I stamped all the different little like coral bits first in some of these brighter colors. And then I got the peeled paint one out and used that to stamp my seaweed across the bottom here. So once I had all my little images stamped, I'm going to stamp the sentiment that's also from the Mermazing set, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment with the same black licorice hybrid ink. So I'm going to ink that up and stamp it, and then once I had that stamped, there's 2 little clusters of fish in the Mermazing set. So I inked those up with the Distress Oxide inks as well, and just stamped those around the sentiment. And that finished off the inside of the card. Once that was done, I could go on and adhere my mermaid scene to the front of the card, and I did what I had thought I was going to do. I added foam tape to the back of it, and then I'm going to line that up onto my card, and that finished it off. So as always, there will be links below my video to my blog post, links to all the supplies used if you're interested, as well as a link to the MFT blog where I've got word directions written out for that. So check that all out if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.